right, today I'm going to introduce Pam Stenzel. She comes to us today from Petersburg, St. Petersburg, Florida. She's traveled all over the world speaking to over 500,000 young people every year. She's seen what young people are facing and comes here today to challenge you. Please welcome Pam Stenzel.
Thank you. Good morning. It's good to be at St. Michael's. Congratulations, football team. How exciting. Go win, please. And I was just talking to Coach. My alma mater, I graduated many years ago from a little university called Liberty University, the Flames. So we're pretty excited. We actually went to a bowl game, which is a little shocking. So anyway, it's good. I live in Florida now. Spent most of my adult life in Minnesota, which is why I now live in Florida. When my youngest son went off to university about a decade ago, he came and he said to me, he goes, "Mom, I'm going to UT Austin, going to Texas, and I'm not coming back to Minnesota." I said, "Good, because your dad and I are moving to Florida. I have had enough of Siberia." And so I've lived in Florida for the last decade or so. I travel around the world speaking to students. I've been doing that for about 25 years, not only here in the U.S. and Canada, but right before COVID, I ended my school year in Johannesburg and Cape Town. I've been all over Europe, most of the English-speaking world, Australia. I've done some work in Mexico with the translator, but it's been an awesome ride. Before I started traveling and speaking, I spent 9 years counseling in pregnancy clinics in the Minneapolis area. So when I moved to Florida, I got back involved working with pregnancy clinics there. I have 4 clinics that I oversee, Naples, Fort Myers, Sarasota, and then in 2019, we opened up a pregnancy clinic at the University of Florida in Gainesville. My clinic actually faces the swamp, so I've been the last 4 years kind of right in the heart of the university situation, and it's been great. So for all of these years working in pregnancy centers, I would have girls come into my clinic saying, "Pam, I didn't know. If someone would have told me that this is what was going to happen, I would have made a different choice." No one told me. I began to ask these girls in my clinic, what could we have said? What could someone have said to you before you made your choice that might have helped you to have made a better choice? And after 9 years, I realized that we had a lot of students out there making decisions about sex, having no idea, none, what the consequence of that choice would be. That's what we're going to talk about today. I did not come to St. Michael's to decide for any of you what you're going to do about sex. Not why I'm here. Can't make this choice for you, don't intend to. Can't go on your dates with you, I don't have time. Your parents can't choose for you. Some of them might wish they could. I told my kids, and I have 3, when they were about 4, that when they turned 13, I'm putting them in a box, locking it and feeding them through a window till they're 20. That was my plan. We can't do that. All we can do is love you, tell you the truth, and pray you make good choices. My goal is not to decide for you what you're going to do. I'll do whatever you want. What I don't want to happen is for any of you to be able to walk out of here later and someday have to say to a physician, to a counselor, to your future husband or wife, "Well, nobody told me. I didn't know." Today, you're going to be told. What you choose to do when you walk out of this gym is completely up to you. I get to start today the way I can't start in public school, but at St. Michael's, I get to start this talk this way. Students, God created sex. It is awesome. It's not a horrible, terrible thing we can't talk about at Catholic school. It was God's idea, not yours. God wants you to have great sex. He does. This is not about wrecking your fun and ruining your weekend. Now, I grew up in church. I grew up in the Baptist church. So I had some pretty weird ideas about God when I was a teenager. I thought God was bored one day and he didn't have a thing better to do. So what he thought would be fun would make a bunch of rules to ruin my life. So he wrote the Bible, the 10 Commandments, which we all know are rules to wreck everybody's fun. And if that wasn't bad enough, when I was a kid in church, we used to sing this song all the time. "Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see, for the Father up above is looking down in love." I did not hear the "in love" part. I heard the Father up above is looking down with lightning bolts ready to fry you if you blow it. That is God's job. Make up a bunch of silly rules, sit up there all day long and watch you. So if you blow it, break a commandment. It's like fried, saw you.
Students, God loves you and God loves me, and God's law is not about wrecking our fun and ruining our weekend. It's about giving us the best. But God took a colossal risk at the beginning of time. And if I were God, I would not have done it, which is why I'm not. God, for some reason I do not understand, decided to let you choose. Decided to give you choice, knowing full well that all of us, at one point, would shake our fists in his face and tell him we don't need him, we don't need his rules, God doesn't need to tell me how to live my life, I can do it my way. And what would follow would be sin, disease, pain, and death. Even though he knew that, he let you choose. Students, God created sex, but he created it with a boundary. And when sex happens within the boundary for which it was created, it is awesome. When it happens outside of that boundary, it's horribly, horribly destructive. What is the boundary, the context for which God created sex? Marriage is the right answer. Some of you knew that. Most of you don't believe that. You know how many kids that went to maybe Catholic school, go to Mass every week, go to church, show up in my clinic and go, yeah, but we loved each other. So? God did not create sex for love. That is not the boundary. God created sex for one context and one only, permanent, lifetime commitment, marriage. Not love. Now, sometimes in marriage there's love. That's helpful. On occasion there's not. Not the criteria. 39 years ago, I walked an aisle and I said these words to a young man whom I loved. You and you only. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do us. I was brain damaged. So is he. Guess what we got? Sicker, poor, and worse. Sorry to burst your bubble, girls. Sometimes when we're single, teenagers, especially teenage girls, we think marriage is going to be happily ever after excitement, heart-pounding romance, one big long date. I blame Disney. Actually, I know why you think that, because you look at your parents' marriage, and that is the most romantic relationship you've ever known. You know yours will look. My marriage did not look like that. Looked to my husband and said, my goodness, it's got to be you, because I'm the most exciting thing that ever lived. If there are problems in my marriage, it is his fault. I dump that guy and find another one, and I'll have a great marriage. My marriage has problems. You know why? I'm in it. When you get married, your marriage is going to have problems. I did not say I'll stay married to you if you treat me the way I expect to be treated, you put your socks where they belong, you don't gain 500 pounds in the next 10 years. And he didn't say that to me, thank God. What I said was I'm committed to you for the rest of my life. That, my friends, is the safe context for sex. Not a fuzzy feeling, not we like each other, marriage. And I love God's law because it's easy. This isn't complicated. Doesn't take a 4.0. Either you're married or you're not. And you can't be kind of married or almost married any more than you can be kind of pregnant. It is an A or B situation. And here's the other reason I love God's law. Because this law is true for every single person in this room. And I'm including the entire staff sitting back there. Right? Including your principal. Same standard for all of us. This is not a different standard for you and we. Here it is. If you are not married, don't do it. If you are married, go for it with the person you're married to. Have to put that in there. Some of our politicians get confused. You're not on a date going, I don't know, does he love me? You said it, he's really cute. We went to Jared's. We're getting married this summer. What should I do? Are you married? No, then don't. You forget everything I tell you today, and you can only remember one thing from me. This is what I want you to hear. If you have sex outside of marriage, now let me say it the way I have to say it in public school. It might even be clear. If you have sex outside of one permanent, monogamous, and monogamy does not mean one at a time. That is one partner who has only been with you. You have sex outside of that context and you'll pay. There is a cost. No one has ever had more than one partner and not paid. No one. Question we have to ask today, is what is the cost and is it worth paying? We're going to talk about the physical, emotional, and spiritual cost today. Physical cost, help me out, students. What are most teens who are having sex afraid of? Oh, I wish it were STD. Pregnancy is the biggest fear of teens having sex today. Doesn't make a bit of sense to me. Got a news flash for you, St. Michael's. Pregnancy is not a disease. It's survivable. You can live through it. I've lived through it 3 times now. A few extra pounds here or there hasn't killed me yet. I have girls come into my pregnancy clinic for a pregnancy test scared to death, waiting for the results of that test. I walk in, look at this little girl and say, your test is negative, sweetheart. You're not pregnant. She gets this look of relief over her face. Like, I am off the hook, not pregnant. Thank you very much. Let me out of your clinic. Wait a minute. Have you been tested for syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, chlamydia, trichomonas, vulvodynia, arthritis, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HPV, HIV? You been tested for that? Me, I live in Fredericksburg. I don't live in Manassas. Right? You mean I would need to be tested for that. This girl is in my clinic thinking she could possibly be pregnant, and she does not think she could have an STD. Astounding. Students, you have a 5 times greater risk of contracting an STD today than you ever have of being pregnant. Pregnant teen girls in Virginia are carrying, on average, 2.5 sexually transmitted infections. Not 1, not 2, most of them 3 or more. But they were not worried about getting an STD, were they? Oh no, they didn't want to get pregnant. Every high school I'm in, without exception, you don't know how I wish today would be the exception, and it won't be. Every single high school. I'll have a girl come up to me, email me, DM my Instagram, and say, well, Pam, my mom found out I was having sex, and so she put me on the pill. Or Depo, an IUD. What's that protecting that girl from? Very good. Boys are on top of this. Pregnancy is what that protects that girl from. That girl, the birth control pill, hormonal birth control in whatever form, has just made her 10 times more likely to contract an STD than if she were not taking those drugs. This little girl is going to end up sterile or dead. Thanks, Mom. Glad you cared. Is pregnancy the worst thing that could happen if you had sex today? Never. Absolutely never. Far worse things than that. However, over 9 years, in the last 4, I've had to tell a lot of young girls that their test was positive. Immediately, they want an easy, painless way out of this pregnancy they didn't plan, and I have to look at this little girl and say, guess what, sweetheart? Your choices at this point are bad, terrible, and even worse. Those are your options. You had a good choice. That was before you had sex. Now all the choices you've got are going to carry lifelong consequences. There is no easy way out of a pregnancy you didn't plan. Abortion is painful. I've counseled hundreds of women, 5, 10, 15, 20 years after having an abortion, still hurting. Counseled teen girls with anorexia, bulimia, depression, cutting, attempted suicide because of an abortion they couldn't take back. This is not like going to the dentist and getting your tooth pulled. There are consequences forever to that choice. Currently, the most common form of abortion being done in our nation is chemical abortion, the abortion pill. This is devastating. It's also dangerous. It is far more dangerous than a surgical abortion. 1 in 25 women who take the abortion pill will end up in the ER. Hemorrhaging, sepsis, bleeding out, ending up with hysterectomies and even death. And let me tell you, for all the lies I have had to listen to over the last couple of months, the biggest one is that these women were killed by pro-life laws, which is absolutely untrue. Most of them were killed by the abortion pill. They were killed by taking this drug. It is horrendous. The abortion pill, when it originally hit the market about 15 years ago, had very serious REMS, rules that had to be followed by the medical community because these drugs are so dangerous. The woman had to take the first drug, it's a series of 2 drugs, had to take the first drug in the presence of a physician after having an ultrasound. If she met the criteria via the ultrasound, she would take the first drug, which would block progesterone and starve the baby to death. And then 48 hours later, she would take the second drug, which would cause her to go into labor. She would now deliver the dead fetus or child. So what happened during COVID is that the abortion industry decided that they couldn't have girls have an ultrasound because it's COVID. COVID. So we can't have her come in and have an ultrasound because it's COVID. So they started doing drive-through abortions where they would have the girls drive up to the abortion clinic. The worker would come out in their hazmat suit, hand her these dangerous drugs, take her cash, because they're going to get paid, I'm going to tell you right now. Take her cash and send her home to do her do-it-herself abortion. At-home abortion, do it yourself. An ultrasound must always happen before anyone would consider taking the abortion pill for a few reasons. Number one, we need to know the baby is viable. If the pregnancy is not viable, and a good 20% of pregnancies end in miscarriage, there is absolutely zero reason to give these horribly dangerous drugs to a woman that could damage her permanently if baby has already died. There's no point. We need to know pregnancy is viable. We need to know baby is where baby is supposed to be, in the uterus and not in the fallopian tube. If the baby is outside of the uterus and the fallopian tube, that is a deadly condition. It could kill her, and taking the abortion pill will do nothing to rectify that. And that's why we're having girls literally hemorrhage out and die, because they took these dangerous drugs and baby wasn't even in the uterus. But they didn't know that because they got their stupid pills online or without an ultrasound. This is astounding. We also need to know baby is between 5 weeks and 10 weeks, and not more than 10 weeks. And the only way you can know the gestational age of a baby is to do an ultrasound. Because if you just ask the girl when the first day of her last period was, this is what we get. It was October. No, maybe it was September. They have no idea. We cannot judge gestational age by asking a question. We have to do an ultrasound. And the fact that women are not getting ultrasounds and taking these horribly dangerous drugs at home is absolutely putting their lives at risk, and it's horrific. The way this drug works, first drug blocks progesterone, baby starves to death. She takes the second drug, and then we'll deliver the baby. Here's the problem. Our girls are delivering the baby at home in their sheets, in their toilets, in their showers. It's horribly painful. So I'm at my UF clinic, and a young co-ed walked in, a girl. She was shaking, visibly shaking. And my nurses quickly got her into the room. She was carrying a little container. And in tears, she looked at my nurses and said, "They told me it was a blob of tissue, and that it would be nothing more like having a painful period." She was in so much pain, bleeding so heavily in her dorm room, that she went to the shower, thinking that would relieve the pain and obviously take care of some of the blood situation that was going on. And she delivered her 9-week baby into the shower, and it was too big to go down the drain. So she had to reach down and pick that little baby up and look at its head, its hands, its little feet, and she was devastated. Devastated. And she told my nurses that she couldn't bring herself to flush that baby down the toilet. And so she brought the baby to us. Let me just tell you, this is painful. This is horrific. And girls, and I'm going to remind you of this as we go further, this is primarily going to all be on you. And that is not to say that there aren't men who suffer from abortion and abortion loss, because there are. I was with one young man who was literally bawling, screaming, trying to text his girlfriend at the abortion clinic, begging her to save their baby. But he didn't have a choice. He had no say. And he was devastated. Abortion hurts men, hurts women, and every single time abortion intentionally takes the life of an innocent human being. Parenting is not an easy choice. I was in a middle school in Ohio, met a 7th grade girl, 12 years old, pregnant with twins. Going to be a lot of difficult years ahead for this middle schooler. Girls, 80% of teen girls who choose to parent children while they're teens will live below the poverty level for at least 10 years, most of them for the rest of their lives. And that's not just that girl living in poverty, that's her child. And 90% of teen girls who choose to parent children today will never attend or graduate from college. 9 out of 10. And 10 out of 10 of them sat in my clinic going, not me, Miss Pam, I'm gonna finish high school, work full time, go to college, be a doctor, get on Teen Mom, make $65,000 a season, that's what I'm gonna do. Or whatever. Number one indicator of poverty in this country continues to be single parent households and the age of that young girl when she began parenting alone. Teen moms. Serious responsibility, girls. This is not a game. This is not a new puppy. This isn't someone to love you. Boys, in case you've all fallen asleep now because we're talking about pregnancy and this clearly does not involve you. Young men, you get a girl pregnant in the lovely state of Virginia, D.C., Pennsylvania, pick your, doesn't matter. You get a girl pregnant in this state, boys, whom you are not legally married to. Not who you like a whole lot, that doesn't count. You get a girl pregnant you're not married to, guys, and you need to understand that you have absolutely no legal right to the choice she makes. This girl can do whatever she wants. You have no say. And suing her for stealing your sperm might prove to be a bit difficult. You could try. If, however, boys, if she decides to parent your child, if that is the decision she makes about her pregnancy, she's gonna keep the baby, you now have legal responsibility. It's costing us over $30 billion a year to support teenage girls parenting their children. We can't pay this bill. Over the last 2 decades, we've undergone welfare reform. As part of the Federal Welfare Reform Act, we are now requiring in all 50 states the social security numbers of both parents on every birth certificate of every child born in this nation. Girls are no longer allowed to say, I don't know who the dad is. Don't feel like naming him. We will have your social security number on that paperwork. Boys, if you've been named as the father of a child, you will be notified by the county. The county health department is going to send you a note saying you've been named as the father of this child born to this girl on this day. You will have between 60 and 120 days to show up at the county and say, it's not me. She pulled my name out of a hat, that girl's lying, she's been everywhere, not my kid. They'll do a DNA test. If that test proves you are not the biological father, they're going back to mom and saying, sorry, try again. So we have somebody's social security number on the paperwork. Why did we change the law, boys? Why do we want that number? So we can let you know when your kid starts kindergarten? I had an 8th grader in Louisiana, he was so cute. He raises his hand, he goes, so that the child will know who his dad is. No. Money's what we're after, boys. It's going to cost you over the next 18 years between $60,000 and $80,000, and your pay will be garnished. If you are not working, you will incur debt. And when and if you ever do get a job, it's coming out of your paycheck. Let me make this clear, boys. This is not a bill the state of Virginia is going to politely ask you to pay. We are not collecting. It is coming out of your paycheck, taken out by your employer before you ever see it. I was up in Minnesota speaking at a high school up there, small high school, way up north, Minnesota, place where people go to hang out at their cabins and fish during the summer. I got done speaking at this high school, and a senior boy got up in front of his entire school, told them all for the first time that he was a father. It was a girl vacationing in their town the summer before. He had no intentions of marrying this girl. He was not going to marry her. And 9 months later, he's a dad. He's allowed to see his daughter one weekend every 3 months. That's when they can arrange transportation from Minneapolis. But he's been required by the state of Minnesota to pay $350 a month to support his infant daughter based on his current income. Kid's not a pro ball player. He's working at Burger King. I looked at Sean in front of his whole school that morning. I said, Sean, if you had anything at all to say to the young men sitting in this room about what you learned your senior year, buddy, what would you say? Sean said 2 words: don't drink. I pressed him. He said, I made a decision drinking I wouldn't have made sober, and I'm going to pay for that for the rest of my life. Not only will Sean pay, but so will a little girl from Minneapolis, so will their daughter, and so will every other relationship either of them have for the rest of their lives. Because he was drunk? You can have all the right answers today, students. I hope you do. You can walk out of here going, you know what? I don't want an unplanned pregnancy, cancer, disease, infertility. I want sex to mean something. I'm going to wait. And then one night you get drunk and have no concept what you're doing. I've had university girls in my clinic, college girls who you would think had something going on up here, come into my clinic for a pregnancy test. It's negative. She's ready to bolt out my door. I'm like, sweetheart, we're not done here. You're going to need pap smears and blood tests for the next 5 years. Oh, Miss Pam, I don't need all those tests because I was drunk. So herpes is asking now? Is that how that works? Because I was unaware of that one. Excuse me, are you drunk or sober? Because we only infect sober people. Drunk people get a pass. Don't drink, students. Don't ever use any kind of drug that would alter your ability to choose. You don't get to say, oops, I was drunk, it doesn't count. It doesn't work that way. Serious responsibility, young men, and my suggestion to the boys sitting here is that you would better think about that before you have sex. After, if you're not married, is too late. Choice isn't yours. Third option a young girl has if she finds herself pregnant, didn't intend to be, which I happen to think is the best option available to girls today, but it's not without pain. It's adoption. The ability of a young girl to take the child she's carried with her for 9 months and loves with everything she is, to say, I want what's best for my child, and I'm not it. And I'm willing to go through all of this pain in order to give my child a family. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of maturity, and a lot of love. That is not easy. 1.5 million requests for adoption will go unanswered this year in our country. 1.5 million couples who would love to be parents before Christmas who will not be. Girls, I need you to hear this. This is primarily going to affect the girls in here. Girls, infertility, the inability to have children of your own biologically, has risen over 500% among women in 1 decade. We've got literally hundreds of thousands of women who are now finding out they will never have children. And after all the money that you and your husband have spent on IVF and all the stuff trying to get pregnant, the chances you'll be able to adopt, if that doesn't work in this country, an infant, not good. Average adoption of an infant in the United States today takes between 6 and 8 years and costs between $30,000 and $50,000. We have no infants available today. It takes a lot of love for a young girl to give her child a family and to give that couple the privilege of being parents. 59 years ago in Michigan, a young 15-year-old became pregnant. She had a lot of difficult choices to make. Maybe more so than some teen girls, she was raped. But this 15-year-old girl chose to give her child life and then to place that child with an adoptive family. And that child was me. My biological father is a rapist. I don't even know my ethnicity. But I am still a human being, and I still have value. And I do not believe that my life is worth less than yours just because of the way I was conceived. And I don't believe that I deserved the death penalty for the crime of my biological father. And I've listened to the rhetoric my whole life. My whole life I've listened to people say, well, every child should be wanted and planned. I've heard this said in the church. Well, I wouldn't have an abortion. That's horrible. I wouldn't kill my child. But if it were rape, you're a mistake, Pam. I don't believe that. I believe that every child is wanted by someone. And I believe that God in his mercy had a plan for me. I've not met my birth mother. She's my hero, my absolute hero. If I don't meet her here on earth, I'm going to meet her in heaven. I've been praying for her since I was 4 years old. And someday when we meet, I'm going to wrap my arms around her and I'm going to tell her I love her. Because she loved me enough to give me my life. And then she loved me enough to give me the next most special gift I was ever given, and that's my family. I'm the oldest of 8 children, 7 of us adopted. Every color of the rainbow in my family. We are the United Nations by ourselves. My brother, just younger than me, is the bio child, the real one. My parents tried to get pregnant. They weren't getting pregnant. They adopted me, and 3 weeks later, Mom found out she was pregnant and had my brother, and then never again, so we adopted 6 more. But on his birthday, I sent him a birthday card because he's my favorite. It said this: "Dear brother, on your birthday, I just wanted to remind you." You open the card up, it goes, "I was planned, you were an accident." We tease each other a lot in my family, but I know that my family was a gift from a very scared 15-year-old girl. I have spent my life walking alongside women experiencing unintended pregnancy because I firmly believe that what my mother needed in that horrible moment of trauma was not to have me violently ripped from her womb, to repay violence with more violence. What she needed was someone to love her. What she needed was someone to come alongside her and say, "We're going to be here for you. We're going to walk this through. We're not going to abandon you. Whatever you choose, we're going to be right here with you." That's what she needed. Students, the reason I've spent a lot of my life traveling the country, being away from my own kids when they were in high school, is because I wouldn't want any of you in here to ever have to make a choice like this. I've spent my life walking girls through this. There is no easy way out. The best choice is before you have sex. That's when you have a good choice to make. After that, it's going to get tough. But please hear me today. If you, someone you care about, were to find yourselves pregnant you didn't intend to be, please get help. Please. Do not walk through this alone. You are going to have to live with whatever you choose to do for the rest of your life. Get help. Pregnancy survival, though we can live through that. Sweetheart, I would gladly walk you through that any day of the week. Far worse things than that. Today, in the next 24 hours, 38,000 high school students will contract a sexually transmitted infection. Today. 38,000 more tomorrow, and those are the ones we're testing. That is nowhere near the teens infected. 38,000 high school students who got up this morning and maybe said, like somebody's sitting here, "Well, it's not going to happen to me, Pam. That happens in D.C. and scary places like Arlington and Manassas. But we're okay in Fredericksburg. We don't have STDs here." Wrong. And well, let me give you the stats. And these are the big numbers. I don't always like to deal with them, but the CDC's last year I have stats for is 2022. They're a little slow since COVID getting their numbers out. 2022, we had 28 million new infections with STDs in this country, highest we've ever seen, and 60% of that 28 million were people between the ages of 15 and 24. Our university campuses are one big giant STD. That's why I put my clinic at UF. I can show you your STD infection rate by your university system, so just keep that in mind, right? In the 1950s, we had 5 sexually transmitted infections we knew about and were treating. 5, you could count them on one hand. Go find a grandparent. Go find somebody who grew up in the 50s or 60s. Ask them. This would be a great dinner table conversation next time you're at Grandma's. Y'all try this. Thanksgiving dinner, make sure the relatives are all there. Grandma, were there STDs when you were a kid? Did people have those, talk about it at school? Did you have crazy speakers come to your high school and yell about syphilis in 1962? No. Maybe a few people back then had an STD. They got a shot of penicillin, moved on. Welcome to 2024. We now have over 30 sexually transmitted infections, 30% of them absolutely incurable. That means you get one of these STDs and you've got it for life, which is a lovely thing, boys, when you're getting ready to get married. Found this girl you love. I mean, this is it. She's the one you want to marry. All those other girls, that was just messing around. This is the real thing. Pull out that diamond, look her in the eyes. If you're really cool, boys, you get on your knees. Say, "Marry me. By the way, I've got genital warts. You'll get it too, and we'll both be treated for the rest of our lives. In fact, you'll probably end up with a radical hysterectomy, cervical cancer, and possibly death. But marry me." Well, I'm excited now. Thanks for sharing. Is that what you want to tell your wife, boys? Lovely. HPV, genital warts, syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, chlamydia, trichomonas, lymphedema, arthritis, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, list goes on and on and on. These are serious diseases with serious consequences. HIV is not the only STD out there, and certainly not the only one that's killing people. And yet we still have teenagers who actually think, well, if I don't get pregnant or I don't get AIDS, well, then I don't have anything to worry about. I'm fine then. No. Chlamydia, one of the most common STDs among high school students, primarily because we can easily and cheaply test for this, so more students are getting screened. But one of the more common STDs among high school students, college students, is chlamydia. This is a bacteria, not a virus, easily treated and easily cured. If we knew you had it, we could help you. 7 days worth of antibiotics, typically given in 1 to 2 doses, and we can wipe this out. 2 types of STDs. Students, if you have not yet had biology, or if you flunked, pay attention, you'll get a better grade next time. This is not hard. 2 types of STDs, bacterial and viral, or non-viral and viral. A bacteria is curable. Medication we can give you, we can take care of that. A virus is not. You get a virus, you got it for life. There is no cure. We've never in the history of the world cured a virus. You learned a little bit more about this when we had the little virus running around called COVID, didn't you? We couldn't just give you an antibiotic. How do we have to fight a virus called COVID? The vaccine. Because the only way we can do anything about it is to try to teach your body to fight it. Completely different. Chlamydia is not a virus, it is a bacteria, curable, so what's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. 90% of teenagers who have chlamydia, there are no symptoms. You cannot treat an STD you don't know you have. We got thousands of teens out there having sex going, well, it's not bothering me, Miss Pam, because I've had sex, but I don't have an STD. Never been tested. Certainly not in the last 3 weeks, but I know I don't have anything. How in the world would you know that? Let me tell you something pretty safe to say I know about you. If I've got a student sitting in this gym who's had sex, let me tell you something I'm pretty sure I know about you. It's true of teens all over the world. It's no different here. You actually believe that if you get up the next morning and herpes isn't tattooed to your forehead, you don't have an STD. I mean, if I can't see it, feel it, or touch it, I don't have it. Pam, if I had an STD, I would know. My nose would turn purple, my ears would be red, something would burn. I would know. No, you would not know. The only way you would know about chlamydia is if you got tested. You're not getting tested because you don't think it's going to happen to you. And you think if you don't feel sick, you're not sick. I think you'd know. I was in Houston with about 30,000 high school students, the summer conference, in the Astrodome, or whatever we call that place. And whenever I get done speaking in big stadiums like that, I'll get done and about 1,000 teenagers will rush up to me going, Pam, you need to come to my school. When you get to my school, we had 8 girls pregnant. We have the highest pregnancy rate in the county. But I don't know anyone at my high school who's got an STD. Really. First of all, your friends aren't getting tested. And even if they were, do you think they'd tell you? Come on, St. Michael's, they're going to tell you? Hey guys, I went to the doctor yesterday, found out I had herpes. Tell everybody by lunch. I would like the whole school to know. Maybe we could put it on the announcements. I'll ask your principal later. We're going to try this St. Michael's every Monday morning after prayer and the pledge. We're going to do this. The following students contracted an STD over the weekend. They are. That would be helpful. Then we would all know. What did you think, girls? You think you're going to wake up the Monday after homecoming, walk the hallways of the school, go, purple nose. Did you see his nose? Girls, this house is going to work, right? We're at the Monday after homecoming. Do you see that guy in the hall? Purple nose. Don't touch him. I saw his nose. He's got herpes. Do you think you would know who in this gym has an STD? Because if the stats are right, if we follow the national stats, 1 in 4 of you do. Think you know who they are? There's no way we'd know. American Medical Association released a bulletin, said this: every teenage girl who has had sex must be screened for chlamydia every 6 months. Every teen girl who has had sex must be screened for chlamydia every 6 months. Why girls? Why not the boys? Don't boys get this?
All right, so it's not that boys and girls both get this, give it to each other. I'll give you it's not that only girls get it, boys get chlamydia, give it to each other, right? Here's why. Girls, ladies, you contract chlamydia 1 time in your lifetime, cured or not, and there is a 20% chance you will develop PID and be sterile for the rest of your life. Each subsequent infection with chlamydia for a female greatly increases her risk of pelvic inflammatory disease and permanent infertility. We got women now entering their late 20s, maybe 30s, saying, I'd like to start my family now. I'm married, finished college, finally found a good guy, right? Done with all the messing around I did when I was in high school and college. Now I want to be a mom. She tries, she can't get pregnant. She goes running to a doctor's and says, my goodness, sweetheart, you've got all the scar tissue in your fallopian tubes, your ovaries, your uterus. You have pelvic inflammatory disease, PID. You had chlamydia when you were a teenager. What? I had a sexually transmitted infection. How could I have had that? I didn't know. Too late, girls. Too late. Girls, can I love you just a minute? And I know you're outnumbered at this high school. But let me just love you just a minute. I need you to hear this. That boy can dump you, leave here, go to university, meet another girl, marry her, and have a family. This is absolutely not going to hurt him. Girls, you're scarred for life. Please hear this. You have more to lose. Listen, I knew I was walking into a situation where I had a lot more boys than girls, but I have spoken at all boys' schools across this country, and I'm going to say this clearly right here. I'm not going to candy coat this. This is the reality. Of the 30 major STDs we're dealing with today, 26 of them primarily damage women. The other 4 damage both. Fair? Yeah. Girls, I wish I could make stuff up for boys. You know, things that are turned green, fall off. Seriously. If I could make it up, I would. That would be lying and untruthful. Ladies, you will pay a higher price every single time. Here's what is important to know, because I'm going to say something that, sadly, in the last 2 minutes became controversial. And I've been talking about this for 30 years. 2 minutes ago, this became controversial. In case you missed this in 6th grade human reproduction and anatomy, we're different. Boys and girls' bodies are not the same. You're looking confused. Were you aware of that? This is called science. Women, we have an open sexual system. The men in here have closed sexual systems. We are easier to infect and easier to damage. It's the way we're made. Girls, we have to release an egg from an ovary that makes its way through a fallopian tube that cannot be scarred in any way. If that takes place and the set takes place, the conceived egg now is to attach itself to your uterine wall. There can be no infection or scarring of your uterine lining. Baby girls, for 9 months you deliver. Boys, men, produce sperm. Big deal, it's not that hard, right? All right, our system is a little more complicated. This is important, girls, because I'm dealing with college girls on a regular basis who said to me, no one ever told me this information. I did not realize the cause of chlamydia, the fact that I'm sleeping around and hooking up, and these guys could care less about me. They're in shock when they first hear this. And the reality is, ladies, he's going to leave and probably be okay. You will not. But young men, can I say something to you? The decisions you make
are going to affect your wife. It's just going to happen. I got it upside down, that won't work. So, you're going to get to tell your wife everything you've done. And you will get to carry with you for her all of the choices that you've made. Maybe they won't affect you, but I'm going to make you a promise they're going to affect her. Not going to be a fun conversation. HPV, human papillomavirus, is the #1 STD in our nation. This is a virus. What does that mean? Not curable. You get it, you got it forever. You're going to give it to your spouse someday. This is not only the most common STD in the world, it is the most contagious STD we know. It's not transmitted the way HIV is.
The street name for human papillomavirus, or HPV, is genital warts, basically warts on your genital area that need to be burned off periodically, either through laser surgery or chemicals. We used to think that was the only big deal, is you get a few warts down there, burn them off, till we realized a few things about the virus. One is this: you can have HPV and you can be giving it to partners without ever having warts. The most cancerous strains of this virus, and there are over 100 strains of HPV today, the most cancerous strains don't produce warts at all. Teenagers, college students are not infecting each other with this because they mean to. They absolutely don't mean to. They don't know they have it. Girls, if you get warts or lesions as a result of being infected with HPV, typically girls, they will be on your cervix. When was the last time you saw your cervix? I had an 8th grade boy in Detroit look up at me and go, "I don't know." I said, you don't have one, honey, breathe. The cervix is the opening to the uterus, and boys, you don't have one of those either. I know when I say genital warts to students, I could have a student here who's had sex. Who in your mind is going to start doing this? Well, she said that wart thing, and I have never seen a wart down there. I don't have that. My friend, if you've had sex or sexual contact, and I will define that in a minute, and you have not been tested by a doctor specifically for HPV, in boys, that's a blood test that costs in excess of $1,000. There is not a free clinic in this nation that will test a male for HPV, and the insurance companies won't pay. It's a horribly expensive blood test that is completely inaccurate. It could take 5 years from the time a male is infected before he would ever test positive on our test. And yet we have boys saying stuff like this to girls. "I don't have anything. I got tested." For what? And how much did it cost you? And I sure hope it's been 5 years since you last had sex. Students, STD testing cannot tell you what you don't have. We can't tell anybody what they don't. We have kids thinking they could have sex on Friday night and run to some clinic a month later and then tell people that you don't have an STD simply because you got tested? Come on. We are testing girls for HPV. It's done in all the free clinics. We test girls completely differently from boys. We test girls through a thin pap smear, or pap test, which is a scraping of the cervix. Why don't we test boys that way? Okay, making sure you're still with me. Yeah. We're now suggesting women, sexually active women, get a pap test every year. If you are under the age of 22, girls, and you've had sex, you are at highest risk. The younger you are, the easier you are to infect with this virus and the more damage to your cervix. If you are under 22 and you've had sex, you need to be getting an annual pap test. A negative pap test does not mean you don't have HPV. It means you don't yet have cervical cancer. Boys, HPV is a little annoying. Having warts burned up, well, quickly, there's a vaccine for HPV. Some of you, I'm going to assume that most of you maybe have even been vaccinated. Here's the problem with the vaccine. We're not sure how it works in males because we're not testing them. We have no data. Here's a girl for HPV, or for the Gardasil 9 to even slightly be effective, as it were, is the girl has to be a virgin. She has to have never had sex upon time of vaccination, and this vaccine is most likely good for 9 out of the 100 strains of this virus. So just so you know, just becoming vaccinated does not guarantee you won't be infected. And that's why I want these girls to hear that you are getting a pap test even if you've been vaccinated. Boys, HPV is a little annoying. Having warts burned off your genital area is painful. I'm guessing we have seen late-stage penile and throat cancers in males as a result of this infection. However, for the most part, you're going to be okay. But I would hate to have to be there, guys, when you had to tell the girl you loved and wanted to marry about every single partner you've had, because I have to know. My risk of infection has nothing to do with whether you used a condom or got tested. My risk of infection has everything to do with where you've been. I have to know every single partner. It is unconscionable that anyone in this gym, and I'm including the staff and myself, I'm not taking us out of the equation. It is unconscionable that anyone would ever have sex with another human being and not honestly tell that person everywhere you've been, every partner on the table. It's not going to be fun, guys. You're going to live. Girls, you better know where this boy's been.
And you better pray to God he's not lying or cheating on you, sweetheart, because this is a really big deal for you. HPV is the #1 causal agent of cervical cancer in women. We now have girls as young as 18, 19, and 20 undergoing radical hysterectomies, will never have children because of invasive cervical cancer. I was speaking at a Catholic high school, end of the school year. It was May. And I had this senior girl walk right up to me after my assembly and go, well, Miss Pam, I got cervical cancer, got it in the 9th grade. Which means she got HPV in the 7th or 8th. She goes, I've had numerous cryosurgeries, freezings of my cervix. The cancer is now spread to my uterus. They're doing a hysterectomy next week. 3 weeks before she graduated. She's being tough. She said, Pam, kids are noisy, smelly, cost a lot of money, and I don't want one. And then she got a little teary. She said, I'm just trying to deal with the fact that I'm going to have to tell the man I love and want to marry that if he marries me, neither will he. Worth this, girls? Because he said he loved you? Because you needed to be popular? Because everybody else is doing it? 2 things you need to know about HPV. The CDC says that 67% of the teenagers in Virginia who have had sex, that's a specific group, that's not all of you. Many of you here have not had sex, you're virgins. You can run out of here in a minute yelling virgin, you are perfectly fine. 67% of the students who have had sex are already infected with at least one strain of HPV. That was math you did want to do, so let me give it to you clearly. The CDC says there is no way anyone under 22 today can have sex with someone who is not in fact a virgin and not get an STD, statistical impossibility. We are no longer asking if sexually active students are infected, we're simply trying to figure out what you have. Here's why. There's not a condom in the world that will protect you from HPV. I did not say it might slip, break, fall off, or you left it in the glove compartment. That is not what I said. Condoms, used properly, provide no protection from HPV. HPV is not transmitted the way HIV is. HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, requires the exchange of body fluid. We need blood, semen, or vaginal fluid exchange. Herpes and HPV, herpes, which is also a virus transmitted the same way as HPV, herpes and HPV are skin-contracted viruses. All it takes is skin contact anywhere in the genital area, and you're infected for life, and will infect everyone you have genital contact with after that. Doesn't take what some of you think is sex. You know how many students we've had in our clinics test positive for herpes or HPV who thought they were technically virgins? Thought they could do everything else? Because what was their big fear? What were they worried about? Getting an STD? Worried about getting pregnant! So I can do all this other stuff. It's not sex. It's safe. It doesn't count. I'm still a virgin. Pam, I don't have to tell people I did that with because that's not sex. Pam, I'm not worried about STDs because my boyfriend was a virgin. And you know that because he told me. It is not acceptable to tell students to not have sex if we're not going to define it. Absolutely have to define it. I'm now going to give you the medical definition of sex. This is the medical line over which you can't step, and if you have stepped over this line, you've risked an STD, and you need to get tested, and don't you dare tell anyone you're a virgin. We got kids running around going, I'm a virgin, I am, I promise, and they're infecting each other like wildfire. Here's the line. Absolutely no genital contact of any kind. That's hand to someone's genital, mouth to genital, genital to genital. Oral sex is sex. Hence the name oral sex. And if you have had oral sex, you are not a virgin, and don't you dare tell anyone you are. And every partner you ever have will have to know every single person you've done that with. Was that clear? Y'all know what genital means? Because I get about 100 emails a week. Does that mean shaking hands? We don't usually have genital contact with people we're meeting in the hallway. You know, hello, nice to meet you. Simple rule. Both abide by this rule at all times. You're 100% safe. You're going to run out of here yelling virgin. Here it is. Ready? Keep your pants on and zipped, boys. If you've done that, you're fine. If you've not, you need to get tested. What if we didn't have HIV and genital warts and herpes and syphilis and gonorrhea and chlamydia? What if I could give you a super condom? High school kids get desperate. What if I use 5, a bodysuit? There's got to be a way. Are there other reasons, do you think, this is going to start stretching it for some of you, are there other reasons we might want to wait to have sex until we're married? Anyone? Yeah, I think so. I actually believe that sex is more than a biological act to meet a biological need. I am such an idiot such a complete moron that I actually believe sex involves a little bit more than a few body parts touching. Let me tell you, I believe that each and every one of you in here were created in the image of God. Probably one of the most important facts of theology that's important to understand. You were not an accident. You were created by your Creator who loves you desperately and knows you. And that God created each and every one of us, male and female, and said it was good. And He created our sexuality in such an amazing, beautiful way that we're complementary, that we don't exist without each other in the binary. He created women vulnerable in one sense, but amazingly strong. The fact that I literally can co-create with my Creator another human being and carry that baby in my womb is amazing. He created men to be protectors. He created men to honor and protect and defend. That's why I love St. Michael. He's a protector. He's a defender. That's what God intended. And He created sex to be that part of me that I gave to my husband, I gave to no one else. That part of Him my husband gave to me that he gave to no one else. The one thing that would make our relationship absolutely unique. And our culture, and I believe the enemy, has destroyed it and made sex to be a recreational sport and just something we do and ways we hurt and use each other and damage each other. And there's no way we see any honor. I have one daughter and two sons. My daughter is the eldest, my two boys. But as a mother, as I raised my sons, who are now adults, I wanted desperately to raise young men who would honor and respect women, who would treat women with respect. That's what I wanted from my boys. And I am so proud. I am so proud that they have done that. Sometimes girls will say to me, I can never, all boys are this, or all men, and I'll never be treated with respect. Girls, can I tell you what? There are young men sitting in this gym right now who are men of integrity. And it's not about what they say. It's about what they do. Don't listen to their words. You watch what they do. And if they treat you with honor and respect in every way, opposites might attract when it comes to personality. Opposites never attract when it comes to character. Every single one of you. You are going to get exactly what you are. You want a woman of integrity, guys, who will be faithful to you, mother of your children, a woman who respects and honors, then you better be a man who respects and honors, because if you are not, no woman who respects themselves will want you. Girls, you want a man of integrity and honor? The father of your children to be someone who honors you, respects you, then you better be a woman of honor. A woman, not act like one, be one. Are you hearing me? I had the privilege, well, before I had the privilege, my only daughter, she's the oldest, so it was the most difficult for me, I think, besides just her being a girl. But my daughter was a virgin when she left high school. We lived in a very small area in Minnesota. She went to a small public school, maybe a little bigger than this, but not much. And we had protected her. And she was a virgin when she left high school because I would have killed any boy that came near her, and I had access. And then I did the scariest thing I've ever done as a mother in my life and dropped my only daughter off at the dorms at Minnesota State University. Cried the whole way home. I lost it. My husband's like, are you going to make it? I said, I'm not going to make it because I love this girl more than my life, and I know what she's facing, and I can't choose for her. I tried to apply to be her roommate. They wouldn't have me. My daughter became a militant virgin in college. Let me tell you what I mean by that. My daughter was pretty quiet about her commitment to sexual integrity in high school because she had to live in my shadow. But when she got to university, she won the sex lady's daughter. She was just Kara. And my daughter got loud really fast, not because of her mother, but because she saw the pain on her dorm floor every single day. My cell phone became the hotline for freshman floor 6. And my daughter woke up really quick and said, this is not what I want. And what all these other kids are doing, this is not what I want. And on her wedding day, my daughter and my amazing son-in-law, such an amazing young man, a man of God, just, my daughter did well. Just love him. My daughter walked that aisle, and as she stood at the altar with my son-in-law, just before they put their wedding bands on, both of them removed the chastity rings they've been wearing since high school, took them off their hands, walked off the altar, handed them to their parents, came back up onto the altar, and put their wedding bands there. This matters. And the choices you make today will determine what that day looks like for you. And what we're asking you to do today is to think. Not going on your dates with you can't. You've got to decide. Not everybody sitting next to you, not your friends. You decide. If there's a student here who's had sex, let me speak to you really quickly. Maybe somebody here has had sex and you're thinking, oh, I hope other kids are listening, but you're too late for me. If you've had sex and tuned me out, tune me back in right here. I do not care what you did before you walked in this gym. I care what you do when you walk out. And you walk out of here and say, it doesn't matter, I've already done it, and I don't need to listen to you, and you do not need to listen to me. Do whatever you want. Please get tested. Girls, you have to. You need to get tested this week, again in 6 months, again in a year, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Who's to say the next time you decide to put this gun to your head, it doesn't go off? Who's to say the strain of HPV you're carrying today won't kill you, but the one you get freshman year of college will? When are you going to begin to build integrity, discipline, trust? You could start today. Don't ever let anyone tell you that because you've had sex in the past means you have to keep doing it. You don't. I had a little girl run up to me after my talk, got right in my face. She said, Pam, I'm a recycled virgin. I said, cool. She said, when I was 15, I had sex. It left me with a lot of pain, and Pam, I knew better. And I knew I didn't want to keep getting used and dumped. I didn't want scarred fallopian tubes and cancer. I wanted sex to mean something. And I went to confession, and I asked God to forgive me. And I made a commitment that day to God, to myself, and to my future husband that I will never have sex again until the day I'm married. I said, sweetheart, that's amazing. That's amazing. My Bible says if you will confess your sin, he is faithful and just and will forgive you. Will cleanse you from all unrighteousness, throw your sin as far as the east is from the west. But confession and repentance is not saying sorry to God for your sin on Thursday morning so you can do it again on Friday night. It is a 180-degree turn from sin to righteousness. It's going and sinning no more. Back to my little girl, I said, sweetheart, you've been forgiven. Someday when you get married, you're going to have to tell that young man what you did when you were 15. He will have to know. But you're going to be able to look at him and you're going to be able to say, for the last 3 years, 5 years, 7, not last week. I slept with every guy I ever dated, but last week I changed. No. For 7 years, I have waited for you. I've walked in integrity and waited only for you for 7 years. And we're going to know what kind of damage was done. We have had years to make sure she's okay. You can walk out of here and keep doing what you've been doing. There's a lot of disease and pain at the end of that road. Or today you can say no more. Choice is yours. Someone's going, yeah, but Pam, if I go to my girlfriend or boyfriend and tell them I love them, we love each other, I don't want to break up, but I don't want the sex, they'll dump me. If I won't have sex with them, it's over. Really? What's your relationship based on? It's based on sex. Want to test a relationship that's sexual? You want to find out if they love you? Do you even care to know? Got a challenge for you today. Stop. See what's left. If they love you, they will still be around, and you'll have an opportunity to work on what makes a relationship last. If they dump you because you won't have sex with them, you just learned what that was all about. As painful as it is, ask any adult in this room. It is a lot less painful to learn it when you're 17 than to learn it 8 years into a marriage where someone's cheated on you, dumped you, and left you with 2 kids. Don't believe me? You don't have to. Prove me wrong. Right ahead and prove me wrong. If you're sitting in here and you've never had sex, you're a virgin, can I say something to you? First thing I want you to hear is you're not alone. You are not the last virgin on the planet. Thousands of students across this country and many others are choosing to save sex for marriage. You are not the only one. And I'd like to say this to you because I know you'd never hear it, rarely. Hear it from me today. Good for you. Good for you.
You have something so special and so valuable. It is worth whatever it takes to get to your wedding with no past, no fear, no disease. It will not be easy. You will get laughed at. Even here. Worse when you get to university. You're gonna laughed at. Kids are gonna say, you're not having sex, everybody's doing it. You some religious freak, you're gonna be a nun, you like Star Wars, what's the problem? Don't listen to that. I had a senior boy, St. Joseph's Academy, Buffalo, New York. It was about 15 years ago, just to give you this little, it wasn't last week, it was 15 at least years ago. But I was speaking at St. Joseph's Academy, and this young man chased me down the hall of his Catholic high school. And the teacher saw him and said, Pam, that boy, 4.0 student, full ride scholarship to play basketball at Duke University. He was 6'8". In my world, that's a giant. Chases me down the hall doing this. Virgin! You do not miss a 6'8" senior yelling virgin at you ever. He caught up with me. I'll never forget him. He said, Pam, it's easy for girls. Easy for girls to tell people they're virgins, but you have no idea what it's like for a boy. You don't hear the locker room talk? You don't hear the guys on my basketball team all talking about what girls are easy, bragging to everybody about who they're having sex with. What do I say to my buddies when they're mocking me because I am a senior and a virgin? I said, young man, next time your friends start to tease you because you're saving yourself for your wife, I want you to look right at your friends and I want you to say this. Any day, tonight, I could choose to be like you, but you will never again be like me. Once it's gone, it is gone. And it takes that long to throw it away. It takes a lot of integrity and self-respect to wait. And you're worth it, right? Told you I couldn't choose for you. Choice is yours. You deserve the best. Pay attention to your choices. They matter. And they don't just matter today. They matter 5 years from now and 10 years from now. And treat each other with respect. Will you do that for me? Men, treat women with honor, please, in everything you do. Girls, treat yourselves and each other with that same honor because you deserve it. You were created in the image of God. I'm going to let your principal come and dismiss you. But thank you so much, St. Michael's, for your attention and your time. Bless you.